Welcome back to another episode of We Are the Ones podcast. This is the podcast where we have extraordinary conversations with extraordinary people doing extraordinary things. And I'm so excited about today's guest because it's absolutely no exception. But before we jump into that, Avi, how you doing? Listen, you've been killing them with these outfits, Avi.
Listen.
You got the belly out today?
I do.
You got the belly out today? Come on.
You know what I mean?
You looking fly today. Look, I got the boots.
I pay for my personal trainer. So if I'm going to pay for it, it better be showing.
Shout out to the personal trainer.
Shout out to Coach Cool. You know what I mean? But I told you I was going to go back to Miss Eye Candy.
Okay.
Because she was having her sweaters and things like that. So when I went in there, I was like, okay, Miss Eye Candy, I'm back. What you got for me? She was like, actually, want you to try this? I said, that's a crop top. She's like, this is cute. So I was like, good. And then these jeans, I love these jeans that she gave me as well. They're nice and stretchy and everything, and they're high rise. So it actually goes good with a crop top.
Okay. Look at you looking rather flourish today. Look at you.
And I see you matching with me.
Okay.
Come on, vibe. Come on, vibe.
There you go. But nah, you looking fly as usual. Shout out to Miss Eye Candy.
Shout out to you. Yeah. You just be doing me so right.
So where can people find Miss Eye Candy?
So they can find her at 85 Allen Street. She's right. She has a beautiful boutique, and Allen Street itself is just gorgeous. But they can also find her on Instagram. She's Miss Eye Candy Allen, Allen. You can find her on Instagram as well.
Y'all make sure y'all check her out.
Absolutely. I'm ready to get into our guests for today.
Phenomenal guest, man.
What we got going on today?
Listen, I had the opportunity, and it's funny too because with many of our guests, I feel like I have somewhat of a personal relationship with a lot of them. We have some type of connection through something that we've done before together somehow, some way, right? I had the opportunity to meet Jillian a few years ago. She was actually one of our honorees for Changemakers 30 under 30.
Yes.
What was that? Was that last year or a couple?
No, it was like...
That was how long ago was that?
Let's see, I was in Emerging Leaders the same year, 2017.
Jeez.
Ooh.
Yeah.
You said last year.
I'm old. I'm listening, yo. Once you turn 40, the memory just...
It's like last year. I'm like, that was like 15 years ago.
No, because... No. I think, what was it? Because you were included in the program last year. I think it was because I think you were supposed to do a poem or something.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. That's what it was something like. I knew it because I'm just looking at the visual of the promo and stuff, and I know she was in it.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
And for some reason, you thought that was your thing she was in, though, last year.
No, it was for 30 under 30.
Oh, it was for 30 under 30?
Yeah, it was for 30 under 30.
I was going to perform. I didn't.
Right, because you see, I think she was out of town or something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. Okay.
But yeah.
Okay.
I ain't that damn old.
That's cool. Oh, now you're not that old. You just said it.
No, but Jillian is a phenomenal talent that we have here in the city of Buffalo. Yes. She is honestly, I think she's one of the gems that we have here in the city.
Absolutely.
We don't.
Absolutely.
Buffalo oftentimes, I don't think we get enough recognition for the talent that we have here in the city because we have some phenomenal talent.
We do.
We have some phenomenal talent.
We really do.
And I think Jillian is she epitomizes that. She is, and we're going to talk about this.
Keep them coming,
but not. Don't.
She's an activist.
Yes.
She's a community leader, and she's also Buffalo's first poet laureate.
Yes.
Did I pronounce that right?
You did.
I did.
Very good. Right. Okay.
Because we're going to talk about it because, all this poet laureate stuff, it's all new to me, so, but we want to talk about that. So, I'm so excited to have a good friend, Jillian Hanesworth, on the podcast. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much, Jillian.
I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, pull your mic in a little bit. Yeah.
Make sure we can hear you.
Yeah, we good. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me.
Oh, absolutely. No, we appreciate you being here. So, Aviance always likes to say, we like to dive into the backstory, right? Because we want to talk about the whole, the Buffalo Poet Laureate stuff. You've been very active this year You know, I mean, it's been a lot happening in Buffalo. We're going to talk about some of it. You've been very active, but before all of that, you know, before the poetry,
because it's a lot we can dive into.
It's a whole lot. We was doing our research, you know. And then there's a lot.
Oh my goodness, I was like, Jamil, where do we go with this? Where do we start with this?
I'm like, we got to let it flow. However it goes, wherever it goes, it goes, right? So, but let's go back. Let's go back before the poetry, before the activism. You know, how, you know, talk to us about like you and your upbringing. Like, what was that like for you here in Buffalo?
Yeah, so I was born and raised on the east side.
Yes, Thatcher.
Yep, on Thatcher.
Yeah.
I moved around a lot, but I never left 14215.
Okay.
And Thatcher.
That's my zip code right now.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it is.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's home. Thatcher is the street I lived on the longest.
Okay.
I also bounced around to schools a lot.
I heard seven schools.
Yeah.
And what time frame? Like how long bouncing around?
Let's see. At one point, I was going to a different school every year.
Why?
But I was at, a part of it was moving, but a part of it was also like trying to find my fit.
Okay.
Yeah, like I went to school sometimes by myself. Like and I have two sisters. They're twins and they're older than me. So it was like, should we go to the same school or not? You know, like we tried it a few times. Sometimes, you know, it got a little sticky. But other times it was fine. But for the most part, it was trying to figure out like my place, trying to find that place where I'm like, I like it here.
Yeah.
Where I could get in trouble, but in a good way. Like I know the fighting and the arguing and, you know, all of that kind of trouble. I did that all through school. But once I got to performing arts, that's where I graduated from. I went there from 10th grade through graduation.
Okay.
That's when I started to like find myself and find my voice. And that's when the personality traits that some schools saw as like personality flaws, my teacher started seeing like, oh, hold on, you might have something going on here.
And I love that part because when I learned that, was it in performing arts where you found out that you had dyslexia?
No, I didn't find that out until college.
That wasn't until college.
That wasn't until college.
Okay.
In performing arts, I found out that I like to use my voice and that I'm the kind of person who, even if I know I need to be quiet, like I'll literally bite my tongue and it's like, nope, I'm still gonna say it. I gotta say it. That's where I learned that I'm that person. And that's where I learned how to like hone in on that. I used to get kicked out of history all the time. Just
for talking?
Disputing the facts, right? Well, that's not how I understand
disputing
it.
the facts?
You know, I'm like,
Wow.
hold on, because I read, you know, and I was right. Like, I'll stand on that. I was right.
Okay.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, you have to learn when it's time to be quiet and learn when it's time to speak up.
That's true.
And I didn't know yet. So I would just speak up when the thought came to my mind. And eventually my teacher stopped kicking me out. And he was like, all right, have you ever heard of debating? I'm going to put you on the debate team.
Perfect.
And our compromise is just be quiet in class. Just sit here, take the test. We'll talk about it after, but just be quiet. And after school, you can make as much noise as you want in debate. So I joined debate my junior year of high school, and then my senior year, I was the captain, and I was like one of Buffalo Public Schools Speaker of the Year.
Wow.
And that's where I was like, okay, like I like using my voice to represent an argument that I inherently agree with.
Well, I kind of want to go back.
Yeah.
Reason being is because at 7 years old, Jillian, you were songwriting. You were a songwriter for New Bethel Church that your mother was a part of. Okay, so talk about that a little bit. Where did your mother ask you to do that, or is that something you wanted to do?
No, my mom's a singer, and her sister would write songs, and they were amazing. Like, when they were in their teen years, they would travel around to different like church conventions and sing, and they would teach choirs these songs they made up. So I just kind of was like, oh, we write songs. Like, that's just what people do. Like, people sit down and write songs. It's normal. So I would write songs, and my mom would be putting her makeup on, and I would teach her my little songs. They weren't good songs. She never actually sang any of them, but she did encourage me to keep writing. She would, you know, with a straight face, learn these songs. She taught me how to harmonize.
Church.
Yeah, like she would use them to teach me, you know, how to use my voice. I grew up singing. So she would teach me like, all right, so when I sing this part, you sing it in this key and we'll see how that sounds together. So it was always just indulging me in a way that was also educating me. But yeah, I started writing songs and then poetry and short stories. At a really young age, I have an intense mind and I was an intense child. I wrote a book at a young age called Death to the Death Penalty. And I sent these books around to publishers.
Okay.
Like, listen, you know, it was a story. It's about a girl and her dad was like accused of, I forgot what the crime was. It was probably something really intense.
For the death penalty.
She was trying to get him exonerated. And they were in the Deep South, and he was like a black man. So it was like historically accurate. But just for the age I was at, you know, it's like, why are you like, girl, go play.
How old were you again?
Man,
I don't remember how old I was when I started this story.
But young.
But I was young, yeah.
So when you say that you were bouncing around trying to find your fit, do you feel as it was because you were such an intense, as you say, child?
No, because I was intense when it came to standing on what I believed in and arguing my point and my side of things. But I'm also pretty introverted. So I was quiet. I was a reader. Like, I read books nonstop. And I have two older sisters that are twins, so they drew a lot of attention just naturally. Okay. And I didn't. I was like in the background. For me, it was more like I need to find that place where I'm not defined by being the twins' younger sister. Where I'm also comfortable enough to share my ideas and safe enough for people to be receptive of them. And I think that's what I was really looking for when I say I was looking for my place. I remember going to Buffalo Academy of Science and I wanted to join the choir, and my teacher was like, no, you're joining mathletes. And I'm like, you played yourself if you thought I was joining mathletes. So it was like this constant, like, people telling me this is the area you should focus on. And I didn't know what I wanted to do. I didn't know what I wanted to focus on.
Was it a particular reason that they were pushing you in a certain direction?
One thing I found is that I meet a lot of people who want to push me in the direction that they went in. I remember being in college and everybody's like, you should get into higher ed. And I applied to a HESA program and I got in, and I, you know, had a letter of recommendation from the president of my college, and they were like, we're going to give you a job here. And just like, you know, it wasn't me. But I think people saw something in me. And they didn't know what it was, so they were like, you know what?
Let's just figure it out.
Just come with me, you know? Just take this path that I took, and I'll guide you along. And I did that for a while, you know, following people's advice, career advice. Now I just, like, I don't now. But it took a lot of time for me to get confident enough to be like, I'm going to go in this direction, even if I have to go by myself.
At what point did that switch happen where that confidence started to come in, where you were like, you know what? I'm gonna go where I feel that I need to be going.
So it started in college. So I went to a predominantly white college. I went to Fredonia.
Oh yeah, that's predominantly white.
Fredonia was the only college I applied to. My guidance counselor was like, if you want to go to school, here go the application to ECC. May the odds be ever in your favor. And I'm like,
guidance counselors be so whack.
They really, and that's really how so many people can relate to that story.
Absolutely.
So I remember driving somewhere with my godparents, and we drove past Fredonia, and I was like, I'm gonna go there. Like, that's a college I bet I could get in. And I applied. I got in originally for singing. But that's where I really learned, like, how to be me and who I wanted to be and what I want that to look like and sound like and represent. Because when you go from living on the east side, which we know 85% of the black population in Buffalo live on the east side, your church is on the east side, your school's on the east side.
Everything,
Everybody's black. Like, Buffalo's one of the most segregated cities in the country. I'm used to being surrounded by people who look like me. Going to Fredonia, I remember my freshman year, there were 3 black girls, including myself, in my dorm building. So it was a lot of trying to figure out who I am and trying to figure out how to stand on that. Yeah. Because a lot of people, they couldn't relate to my life experience.
Right.
I left the theater music department pretty early and was like, I'm gonna do political science. And the most pretentious people ever.
Oh, absolutely.
I get political science degrees, respectfully, but truthfully. So that was tough. Like being a black girl in that department where all my professors are these like older white men with like very conservative beliefs. And my classmates have no idea how to relate to somebody that didn't grow up in Orchard Park or I don't know, middle of nowhere, New York, that I'd never heard of, you know? And then things started happening around the world. When I was in college, Trayvon Martin was killed. When I was in college, people started to challenge affirmative action. And I remember people started to say that certain professors in our campus, you know, white students would say like, oh, this professor's only here because of affirmative action. And for a while, I think you have to struggle with this internal thought, like, I can argue with these people, but they won't try to relate to me. They don't care. Like, they're real life trolls, right? Like, I can argue with them. Or I can organize all the other students that look like me, that think like me, that have the same struggles that I have. Yeah. So my mindset around what it means to serve and what it means to develop as a person and help develop other people completely shifted. Yeah. And it turned from me wanting to argue and make my point all the time to me wanting to craft like sustainable solutions to issues, because at that point, everything was an issue. Yeah.
I will say, when Michael Brown happened, you did a poem. And in the poem, I know you could correct me, but you were saying that basically, I hope he did something in order for him to, you know. So is that a poem that you actually shared with your fellow white classmates at that time? And if so, what was their reaction to something like that?
So when I was in college, I didn't do too much writing. I found out I'm dyslexic and I lost all my confidence. I lost all my financial aid. I had to work 4 jobs to survive college. So prior to finding out I'm dyslexic, I lost my financial aid because my grades were so low. And then finally, after getting academically dismissed, like appealing to get back in.
We definitely could relate.
When I read that, I was like, oh, shoot, Jamil.
Yeah. Appealed to get back in, and they let me back in, but I lost my financial aid. The state was like, listen, you're not even trying. Like, you on your own. And I remember I took a geography class, geology class. It was a geology class. And we were in class. We were going over a test that we had just taken, and I failed the test. And my teacher was like going over the answer. She's like, okay, what's the answer to number 1? And I was saying the correct answers. Right. So she pulled me aside after class and was like, I'm confused because the way you're responding to these questions, I feel like you know it, but how come your test score, how come you're failing? And I'm like, girl, I don't know. You tell me. Like, I'm trying to figure this out too. So she helped me, and I ended up taking all these like tests, found out I'm dyslexic, figured out a new way to learn, a system that worked for me. But it was the process to appeal to get my financial aid back. Like, it's not something that's like doable, you know, like the amount of steps you have to go through.
Yeah, they make you jump through hoops and ladders.
Yeah, and then it's like, you also, like, your parents are involved in that process too. So sometimes they want information from your parents that your parents can't get. Like, so I had to just work, and I worked 4 jobs. And I just struggled my way through. My college graduation day was my eviction day. And I remember having my cap and gown on, going, like, I'm sitting in graduation. I'm so nervous, but I'm excited, but I'm nervous because I'm like, when I get back to my apartment, my stuff might be on the street. Like, the marshals might come and clear my apartment out. I remember rushing back after I graduated and throwing my stuff in black garbage bags, the rest of the stuff that wasn't packed yet, because I just didn't want the embarrassment of, I didn't want that day to turn into that memory, you know? But yeah, so college was a struggle all the way through. It was a fight all the way through. So writing poetry, a lot of my friends didn't even know that I could do that.
Which I'm so glad you met your best friend.
Yes.
Because your best friend, okay, you her name is Tamiko.
Yeah.
Tamiko. Okay.
Kyrie's sister. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Shout out to my boy Kyrie.
Yeah.
No, don't shout out him. Unshout Kyrie.
I'm not gonna do that to you, bro. I'm shouting you out right now.
Shout out to
Take it
Kyrie
back.
dad, no.
Okay, moving right along.
Dad,
Move right along. Best friend.
Yeah, I can't condone that one.
So once you met your best friend is really the one that kind of do you feel like she gave you your voice, or she just gave you that little pushing, that little support that you needed? Like what role did she really play to get that back?
I think she helped validate it. So I've known her, we've been best friends since like the 7th grade. She's always been the first person, like she's the first person to read Death to the Death Penalty. You know, she's the person who, when I would write songs, I would send it to her, or when I would want to post a video, I would send it to her first. And there are times where I am my own worst critic. I'm very hard on myself. My standard for myself is impossible, you know? And she's the person that's like, hold on, Jill, like bring it back down.
Yeah.
Like, not too much, you know? But also like, I feel like once you become known as somebody who can help represent the people forget that you also need people.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's so true.
You know,
a
lot of times when things happen, and I've been doing activism consistently since 2017, 2016 maybe, and a lot of times people call me and I'm like, yes, I need somebody to talk to. Mm-hmm. Hello? And they're like, okay, this just happened. We need you to come and you need to show up and you need to write something, and can you call this person? My background's in counseling. So I have people to this day who call me like, hey, you know, my cousin's about to be homeless. What should they do? My baby's father has our kid and he won't give him back. Is that kidnapping? Like, it's constant.
So you're constantly pouring out.
Yeah. So I think.
How does that affect you mentally though?
Yeah.
Oh, it is exhausting.
Yeah.
It's absolutely exhausting. If it doesn't teach you anything, it teaches you how to have boundaries, and like real boundaries.
Come on.
So not like, if you call me after 7, I'm not going to answer. Like, no, I'm going to answer. And it's not going to be a nice conversation because we're going to set the tone for the future. So like Miko has definitely helped me a lot with that. And just like having somebody that I don't have to have a cape around, you know, like I have a small circle. I say I keep my circle tighter than a Cheerio. But none of the people in my circle care that I'm a poet. Like, they don't care. They don't care that I'm an activist. They care for the sake that they know that I do work that puts me in harm's way. They care to the point where they know that I have a high burnout level because of the amount of work I do. But they don't care. That's not how they define me.
Yeah. I actually want you to speak to that, because one thing that we say is that your social capital is definitely needed. But another thing is like that sisterhood or that brotherhood that people need as well. Where do you think you would be right now if you didn't have that tight circle that you have?
I don't know. There have been times where I've been so hurt or so tired or so defeated that I legit thought, like, I'm not going to wake up tomorrow. Like, my heart is so broken. I can't carry this. Like, I'm not going to be able to get out of bed. Like, this is it, you know? Like, say your goodbyes. A lot of people don't understand, like, the kind of work that I do and other people in our community, it's not, like, we're not planning rallies and events, you know? Like, this isn't our job. It's not our work. Right. It's literally your purpose. It's like one of those things where, like, if your purpose is to be a firefighter, sometimes you got to run into a fire.
Right.
And it's the same thing when you do the kind of work that I do. We make enemies, you know?
Oh, yes.
Buffalo Police, we don't got a very strong relationship. You know what I mean? Like, they're not fans of mine. I'm not fans of y'all. So there's a lot of layers that come with it. And then at the same time, life is happening.
Yeah.
I remember last year, my second poetry book came out, and the day before my event we buried my cousin who died suddenly. So it's like, as life is happening to me, I'm carrying that. I have people in the community calling me constantly, and I'm carrying that. And then we have big things that happen that affect everybody as a whole. And not only do I have to carry that, but I get pushed to the front of the line, like, okay, you do this, but do it on camera. And again, I'm not a person I still don't like taking pictures. Like I have a hard time taking a photo. So there are times where you feel like you can get buried underneath it all and you lose yourself in it. And my friends remind me, like, not to get lost in my purpose. Like, you have a purpose, but they're still you. And like, you still have to exist when you're fulfilling your purpose and when you're not. And I can't only be loved and lifted up when I'm on a stage. You know, it has that has to happen when I'm not. So my tribe is the most crucial. I would not be doing what I was doing genuinely. I wouldn't be able to.
So with the work that you do, obviously, when people, if people really know what the work of activists do, I mean, it's a daunting role, right? I mean, you just talked a lot about it just now. What do you do to kind of decompress? Like, what do you do to kind of, because we're in this constant state of, sometimes it feels like we're in this constant state of rage because of all of the things that continue to happen in our communities, you know, not just here locally, but just across the country and such as well, right? So what do you do to kind of like this decompress sometimes, to kind of get your mind away from because you need that?
I leave. I leave Buffalo, just go get away. Like, activism is exhausting. And then some of us are activists and community organizers. And a lot of people don't understand the difference, right? So an activist is somebody who uses their voice, uses their platform to bring attention to a social issue. They use their voice to call for change. But a community organizer is somebody who intentionally equips members of the community with the tools to both identify systemic issues and then to create sustainable solutions. So community organizing, that's campaigning. It's understanding legislative periods and knowing that you're gonna have to go harder between January and April than you will between, you know, June and September. And then, with the activism, that's the emotion. Like, that's the anger, that's the agitation. That's utilizing your social capital, your political capital, to get people on the same page to call for change. So it's two jobs. So you're doing both of those things, and it's a lot. And now I'm at a point where the best break is to leave. And
when you leave, do you completely disconnect? Because sometimes people leave and they're like, they're still like kind of, you know, 1 foot in, you know, and they're still kind of tapped in a bit. You know, and sometimes you just need to just completely disconnect. Like, do you actually disconnect when you do leave? From
communicating with people, yes. I can't disconnect from writing. It's just not possible. Even if I try, I can't. So I don't ever stop writing. I do stop responding. Now, there have been times where I've been like on vacation and I get an email from like the Bills and I'm like, I think I'm gonna respond to this. But for the most part, I just don't. And there have been times, I mean, in the past few months where I will wake up one morning and be like, all right, I don't have anything to do for the next 5 days. I'm gonna go to Florida and just go. And I'm gonna book a flight and I'm there that night. So just giving myself that space. This is also, though, the first time that I'm a full-time, like, artist in my life. I've been working since I was 14. So a lot of it is also like learning how to be in charge of myself, how to set my priorities and strategic plan and things like that so that I can still grow my business. But I'm just giving myself grace, but I don't force too much on myself. I don't force myself to start writing when I'm not ready. Now, if I have a deadline coming up and it's like, all right, Jill, too much, like sit down. That's one thing, but I don't force myself. I don't force myself to wake up earlier than I'm ready to wake up. Creativity for me happens at night, so I do stay up pretty late, but it's productive. And then I watch things that are entertaining and fueling for me. I read a lot. I feel like the more you read, the better you'll write. So like all of that stuff is good decompression for me. Daily, it's like going to the gym. I stop answering the phone at a certain time. I'm just like done communicating.
Yeah.
And then just saying no and like letting no be a full sentence. Yeah.
That's so important. I was just having a conversation with one of my colleagues at work earlier today. We were talking about this exactly, and knowing when to say enough is enough and when to say no to certain things, because when you are, like in a position like you're in right now, when you're thrust into this spotlight, and especially when people can see that, you are someone who can provide an immense amount of value, you're going to get pulled in so many different directions, right? And sometimes it's hard to say no to those things. I mean, I think I've mastered the art of saying no now at this point in my life, because I spent but all of my 30s, just saying yes to everything. And burnout is real.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Burnout is very real, so it took for me to be able to be like, you know what? I know I might disappoint somebody, but I'm no good to anybody if I'm not right.
Yeah. I'm still mastering saying no.
Yeah.
But I have mastered being like, so what's the budget for this project?
You better, yes, absolutely.
Jillian.
Yes.
But I'm still working on saying no. It's hard to say no, especially because like I love what I do. So sometimes I don't feel like I'm gonna be burnt out. Sometimes I just like I wake up and I'm sick. My body's just like, nope. Like we're done now. So for me, it's like I gotta remind myself like, yeah, you love this, but like chill out. Like you're using your voice constantly.
Yeah.
And that's a lot in and of itself.
Yeah.
Just constantly always talking. So yeah, I'm working on it though.
Yeah.
But I definitely ask what the budget is.
Very good.
Please.
I want you to get into your questions that you have for her, because I want to get into that.
Absolutely, because so we want to shift. Let's make the shift now, because obviously one of the big roles of the many roles that you have, but is as a poet, right? So I want to start there first. Like, where did that? We talked a little bit earlier about how you used to write poetry when you were younger, but when did that shift happen where, it was like, this is going to be something I'm going to do full time. This is something I'm going to make a lifestyle out of?
It was when I wrote Little Black Boy. It was the day Officer Darren Wilson was not indicted for murdering Michael Brown.
Yeah.
And then the confirmation, like the day that I was like, yeah, I think I was onto something. It was February 1st of 2017 when that was my first like performance. Like it wasn't family that asked me to do this, and it wasn't just people who know me. It was somebody who has no idea who I am asking me to come and share this one particular piece. And I did Little Black Boy. It was the EOC's Black History Month celebration. And before I left that day, I had like 3 more Black History Month events booked.
Yeah.
And
just from that one?
Yeah.
Yeah, just from that day, I booked 3 more. And then every time I would perform somewhere, I would like book something else. I'm like, ooh, let me get a calendar.
I love it.
But I don't even have a calendar. And that's when I was like, yeah, this is dope. This is dope. And I feel like all of the dreams that I had that I kind of put away when I found out I was dyslexic came like rushing back.
That's so good.
And it's like, all right, all those things that I was doing because I thought this is a good alternative, I don't have to do that. Like, I don't have to be about that. Like, I could really be about what I'm about.
Right.
And I just started performing more. And yeah, by the end of that year, I remember, I want to say Seattle, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me. But another city had installed their own poet laureate for the first time. So I'm like, oh, this is really cool. I looked up the New York State's poet laureate, and I'm like, it'll be really dope if like we had our own, because the things that happen in New York don't happen in Buffalo. It's different, right? The issues they have in Addison, New York are not the same issues that we have on the east side of Buffalo.
Right.
So like, what if we had our own? And I was like, I'm gonna be one day. Maybe when I'm like 50. But I'm like, but we don't have it yet. So the first goal has to be to build it.
You advocated for this role.
Yeah, for years. I went from council member to council member trying to find somebody that was willing to help me. Finally, Wingo was like, oh yeah, that'll be cool. I'll help you. I learned how to write resolutions, and I helped write all the resolutions. I helped write the standards of what is expected of the Poet Laureate. I still didn't think it was going to be me though, because I'm like, you know, it's just me. Like, I'm from Thatcher, you know, I'm dyslexic. I'm young, and I know poets who've been performing longer than I've been alive. So I still didn't think it was going to be me. And I remember one time I was doing a news interview with Wingo, and he was like, yeah, and our first Poet Laureate is going to be Jillian. And I'm just like,
wow, he just put it out there.
Did your heart like skip a beat when he said that?
So it dropped, and then it just like lifted up, and I'm like, you know what, period. I am. Okay. But then, so I got on Facebook that night, and so many people were like, oh, who is this girl? She's too young. You know, she don't represent me.
Yeah, of course.
And that's when I was like, I don't know. I don't know if I want to put myself out there like this. But it still took some time. I think another year or so for us to actually get it on the floor to a vote. No, we had enough votes. So I didn't become the Poet Laureate until March of, what's this year, 2022? So March of...
Was it 2020?
2021.
Okay, 2021. Last year.
Yeah, okay. March of last year. Okay. So yeah, I'm the first one. I'm teaching the hood how to say the word laureate. Yeah. We're working on it. We're working on it.
You know, even my own ignorance, I never heard of a poet laureate before. Yeah. My first introduction to a poet laureate was Joe Biden's inauguration with Amanda Gorman, right?
Yeah, and after that, a lot of people were like, "Oh, you Amanda Gorman," and I'm like, "Not so much," but at least we're starting to understand, you know. Yeah. So yeah, it's cool that people are starting to know what it is and starting to see the value in it.
So what's the role of a poet laureate?
So a poet laureate's job is to write poems and perform pieces that represent a specific area. So some poet laureates focus on the geography, and they talk about the mountains and the lakes and the rivers. Some poet laureates talk about, you know, what's made there, what that state or that city is known for. You know, if I was a poet laureate at Idaho, I might be like, let's talk about these potatoes, you know? Some poets like me, we talk about the needs of the people. Right. And a lot of people are always like, oh, Jill, you know, your poems, they're always just so militant, you know? And I remind people, like, I'm a community organizer. Right. Nobody wants to have to be a community organizer. Nobody wants to have to be an activist. Nobody wants to have to be angry or to talk about this stuff constantly. Right. We do it because it's necessary. So, if you don't want to hear these poems, like, join me in the work so we can eradicate the problems. Right. And then I'll start, I don't know, doing poetry about love. I have no idea.
Love, flowers, and unicorns.
Yeah, talk about, you know, the foot of fairy or something. But yeah, so the Poet Laureate just performs representing that, whatever they decide to focus on, the geography or the people. They do a lot of city events, city or state events.
Because you're a representative of the city of Buffalo, correct?
Yes. Okay. So I'm not employed by Buffalo, but I am appointed.
Appointed, right?
Okay. So with it being appointed, is this like a 2-year thing, or?
Yeah. So the term is 2 years. My term will likely extend one more year. Okay. Because in 2021 we still weren't back for the full year to like doing events because of COVID. Right. But yeah, after my term is up, I will be putting out a call for submissions for the next Poet Laureate. I won't review submissions. I won't pick the next Poet Laureate. Okay. It'll be a committee of people who are going to do that. My hands are off of it. Okay. Yeah,
so it's not unlimited term limits for...
No.
Right.
Okay.
No, I'm not for unlimited term limits. Just to stamp that. Yeah. No, it's not. Yeah, and I think my main focus is just going to be making sure that the community treats the next Poet Laureate as the Poet Laureate, and not be like, no, Jill. Like, remember when Obama, you know, his second term was up, and everybody's like, that's my forever president. Like, I can't be the forever Poet Laureate. Like, you got to give the same person the same respect that you gave me. So it's going to be, you know, redefining what my role is.
Yeah.
You know, do I stay here? Am I going to take the shine away from the next person if I'm here? You know, do I need to go and let them build something of their own?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what I'm going to do. But yeah, I won't be it for forever.
I kind of want to steer in another direction. We're about to, you know, get into something that's probably still sensitive to our area. But I would say, for me, I was introduced to you through May 14th.
Yeah.
So Jamil, actually, because you were actually in the area, why don't you talk about what happened on May 14th in case?
I mean, a lot of people, you know, very familiar with what happened on that tragic day here in Buffalo. But, you know, we had a terrorist attack. You know, a coward came into our community and massacred, you know, some very vulnerable members of our community. You know, and when that happened, I remember myself, my good friend and sister Kelly, who was actually on the pod as well. We put together a community vigil, and you actually spoke at that vigil, right? And one of the things that you said there, and it was something that it really kind of struck a nerve, and you know, for a lot of people, and it still resonates with me a lot, because around that time, the thing that we kept hearing was Buffalo strong, Buffalo strong, right?
She's thinking of it already.
And you said, nah, we ain't Buffalo strong. We got to be Buffalo honest, right? So talk about that a bit.
Yeah, so I feel like when
your whole face shifted too. When you
okay, I feel like when things happen to communities, to people in general, we always praise like their strength or their resilience, you know? And I think by doing that, we almost trick ourselves into believing that our role is to be resilient all the time. Like, we are here to survive, and like, we're not.
Right.
What happened? Okay, so my first question, right, would be, what makes Buffalo strong? Because we are still here after a mass murder? Because a lot of us, we here, you know what I mean? Like, this is not us making a conscious decision. Like, we're just living life. We're here. So what is it? Is it the segregation? Is it the fact that somebody could Google where are all the black people in Buffalo and 14208 will pop up because it's the most densely populated area with black residents outside of New York City? Like, is that the strength that y'all speak of? Like, what is it? Because to me, again, as an activist, as an organizer, as somebody who's only focused on the East Side, to me, what happened was a sign of the weaknesses in Buffalo. The fact that we have to set up grocery drives every day for a month to make sure people eat, that is a weakness. And we have been screaming, hey, people can't get access to food over here forever. You know what I mean? What happened in May did not create a new issue for us. It just exacerbated existing issues. Yeah. So we're not gonna just gloss over all of that and be like, no, we're strong. Like, no, we're not though. We're not. A community where black people don't have economic progress in 30 years is not a strong community. A community where you could build a highway through the most prominent black neighborhood and completely decimate the economic wealth of that community is not a strength. So no, like, sorry, but it's not. This is not strength. We have to be honest, because if we're not honest about what we're dealing with on a daily basis, nothing's gonna change. Literally, we're just gonna go back to acting like it never happened. And then every year on May 14th, we're gonna be like, never forget. We're gonna have a moment of silence and have vigils. People can have balloon releases and get tattoos. People are gonna make it a thing, right? But it's like, okay, well, what are we doing? Because, you know, today, the killer, who I haven't said his name since it happened.
We won't say his name.
Yeah. He
pled guilty.
For a plea. And USA Today called me and they were like, what do you have to say about that? Like, do you feel like him pleading guilty and going to prison for like the rest of his life is justice? To me, justice lies in prevention. Like a just life is one where I can go to the grocery store and not get shot. It's not one where I can go to the grocery store, get shot, and then my killer goes to prison. Like, where's the prevention? So I think in pushing the narrative that, okay, we're strong because this thing happened, we're taking our eyes off the fact that even some of the people we lost in this attack have been organizing for our communities. Like, there is work that has been done. The fact that this store is there is a symbol of the work that has been done. And we're not doing the work because we're bored. We're doing the work because issues exist. So those same issues still exist. And I'm not gonna sit here and let us, you know, have this pseudo strength when we really need systemic change in our community.
How did you feel about the store reopening?
Okay, so I do have a poem in the store.
Let me before you even answer that. I remember I had the opportunity to go into the store prior to it opening, right? And as I'm walking through, you know, there was a big press conference, all of these press folks there, people in the community were invited. So as we were walking, after they did the press conference and everything, we started to walk into the store. Like, I'm just like, oh my God, like, because I saw the video, right? And I'm like, oh my God, like, these are hollow grounds right now that I'm walking on. And I was just overwhelmed with emotion, right? And when I walked in, first of all, you see how beautiful, you know, they really redid it. It looks really nice in there. But the first thing that you see when you go in is your poem, right? It had the beautiful waterfall. And as I see it, I mean, when I tell you I lost it, I lost it. You know what I mean? I'm getting emotional now just thinking about it, because it's just like, I mean, those words were so powerful.
Thank you.
They were so powerful, you know. So I you know, I just wanted to, you know, say that real quick. But yeah, so what were you saying about, you know, store reopening and all that?
Yeah, so the first time I went in the store was a day before it opened.
That was the same day.
Yep, okay, same day. My first time seeing it, and it just felt so heavy.
I did.
I remember looking at my like old Instagram photos, or no, maybe my old tweets. I don't know. I saw this picture of me with one of the Buffalo Bills, and I don't even look like myself. And I was just thinking, like, why do I look like this? I look sick. And it was because I took that picture a few weeks after May 14th. And I was so tired. Like, we had been out there for so long. So I think because I had to jump into helping steer the narrative and, you know, organizing and trying to figure out what some long-term solutions could be, I didn't have that time to like grieve. And the first time I walked in there, it just felt so heavy. I did my rounds, I took my photos, I said what I needed to say, and I haven't been back. When I drive past Tops, I can't even look at it.
Wow.
Now, with that, I will say, there are a lot of people who did not want Tops to reopen. And I understand that. It's so valid. There are a lot of people who were like, I don't have a choice. And that's valid. The day before I went in Tops, I went to the memorial on the corner. And I worked at Open Buffalo, so I was right down the street. So I was like a regular in this Tops. And there was an older woman standing next to me, and we were just, you know, making conversation. And I said, how do you feel about Tops reopening? And she said, I remember walking door to door to get petitions signed for us to even have this grocery store here. I will never let somebody come into my community and take something that I built. And that offered me another perspective where it's like, I think the biggest thing that we have to get across is like, whatever your feelings are about it, it's valid. If you never step foot in there, I understand. And if you were there the day it opened because you needed to go grocery shopping and that's the best store, the closest store to you, I understand. I think taking a side with if it should have reopened and if it should not have became a big conversation. And I think the more productive conversation should have been, how do we create alternatives? Some people don't want to go. So what can we do as a community to get more grocery stores in our community? How can we support Alex Wright so we can get the co-op to open a little bit faster? You know, what grocery store chains are willing to open in our community? Like, what do we do? What can we do? Because it's going to reopen. Like that decision was made with or without any of our feelings being taken into consideration.
Right.
I think the thing that made it sting the most, though, was the fact that Uvalde didn't reopen the school. So after seeing that
They tore that school
happen,
down, didn't they? Did they tear it down?
I think they're going
They're
to.
going to tear it down?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So after like that happened, like the Sunday after the Monday or Wednesday after what happened here, and so it was kind of like we grieved that at the same time. We were grieving this loss at the same time. So for them to say, you know, we would never reopen this school, like we would never subject people to come back in here. And then to know here we have to have this store open.
Yeah,
we have to.
Because what's the alternative solution?
Right.
It goes back to the fact that these problems existed. Like these are bigger issues than what we've historically realized. So yeah, I don't know if I'll go back into Tops. I feel honored that I was asked to write that poem. And I like the poem. For me, it was very healing. So I hope that that's what other people get out of it. But I have not been back inside since.
And I think that's very valid. You know, I think your feelings and a lot of people's feelings are justified. Like you said, I think two things can be right at the same time. Right? You can justifiably so not feel like that you want to go back into that place. I was an advocate for it reopening for the reasons that we mentioned, because there's nothing else in that area, right? Where else are these people going to go? Like you said, it's the most densely populated area, you know, in the city, almost throughout the state, right? Yep. So where are these people going to go to get, you know, access to fresh foods, vegetables, and things like that? They're going to go
banking,
to
the pharmacy,
everything, right? You know, they're going to go to the Arabs across the street. you know what I'm saying? So it's just like, that was my main reason, because I'm just like, these people in this community, they need this right now.
And I had a lot of people come up to me like, Jill, why would you write that poem? Like, it's like you were advocating for the store to reopen. And I often remind people, like, I'm not just your poet laureate. Like, this is Buffalo, right? And even if I don't walk in there, somebody that looks like me will. Somebody else will. So just because I'm not going to take a picture of it every day does not mean that it's not going to be helpful to the people that have no choice but to go there, the people that work there who wanted this poem there, and the people that choose to go. So, you know, I'm always an advocate for making sure that my work is accessible, and then for people who don't want to go in there, but like they want to read the poem, like they can read the poem on my website, they could download a graphic. I have these little buttons that I carry around when I perform that have the last stanza on it that I give out for free. So I definitely want everybody to know, like, this is our poem. And I'm treating it as something that's sacred. I've had big companies ask me, like, hey, can you come do this poem? Can we record you doing this poem? Can we make a video? And I won't commercialize that. So I do treat it as something that's sacred, but I think the grounds where the grocery store needs to be treated as something that's sacred.
Yeah. So before we actually wrap up, when you were talking about making sure that things are accessible, literary freedom. Okay, literary freedom. Okay.
Literally works too.
I was like, no, it's not an L. So I want you to talk about that, because that's also something that you created to make sure that art and the things that you are, you know, about are accessible as well. So talk about that a little bit before we wrap up.
Yeah, so Literary Freedom, that's my company name. One of the main reasons I formed that is to help increase literacy, access to literacy tools. You know, for me, being dyslexic and being the first poet laureate of Buffalo, that's like a conflicting, you know. But there are things that I'm doing now that I never knew I could do, that nobody ever told me I could do. And for a lot of us, like I said, living on the East Side, we don't know how big the world is. And like, how many opinions there are out there and how many different ways of doing things exist. And for writers, it's hard to make a living. Yes. So I remember during COVID, during the shutdown, I was walking around. I was living on the Upper West Side at that point, and I was walking around and I was coming across these little library boxes. And like I said, I read a lot. So I would be like, oh, let me get a book. And then I would take some books. And that birthed Buffalo Books, which is the largest project under literary freedom.
Okay. That's dope.
So through that project, I build little library boxes and I partner up with community members who are willing to house a library box on their property. And I purchase books from local authors. We're actually working on planning the first completely free book fair for the community.
Wow.
So it's really just bringing our stories directly to the people, creating a distribution stream for writers, getting some money in our pockets, and making sure that when kids go and pick a book out, the character is going to look like them.
Yeah,
and
representation is everything.
It's everything. It's everything. So right now, I have a lot of libraries. A bunch of them are in the garage because now the ground's getting too cold. But hopefully when the weather breaks again, we'll have close to 50 on the east side alone.
That's super dope.
Yeah, and then eventually I'll focus on the west side and Riverside.
Okay.
I'll do that at the same time. And then we'll be starting an Adopt a Neighborhood program. So we'll be able to adopt communities around the country and put libraries there, but also make sure that like the writers whose books we're buying, they're getting distribution there.
Jillian, that's huge. So in order for you to do all that, you need a team. Is there anything that you need right now as far as what sort of team you're looking for, type of person you're looking for? Like, are you looking for something right now?
Yeah, I'm like always looking for a team. I'm a team of one. When I do hire people, I'm typically hiring high schoolers. Okay. Typically ones that are very gifted, but just got a little bit much going on. So we need to, get some focus. Or just students that really take an interest in the arts. Okay. But I like to hire high schoolers, but I will be looking for some grown-ups. I need to work with some grown-ups who, after a long day, we could like drink wine together.
Can't do that with the teenagers.
Sometimes like one of my interns right now, she'll be like, "Oh, can I come to this event with you?" And I'm like, "Baby, they're gonna be drinking. Like, you can't come."
No, not watching you.
Yeah, so I will be looking for grown-ups. Some of the larger things that's like hard for me to manage is like creating merchandise. That sounds so small to some people, but for me, it's like a huge thing. I hate doing merch. I'm a very basic person, like dress-wise, and everybody's not like that, and I don't know how to appeal. So I will be looking for people to help with designing graphics. I do have a booking agent, but he mainly represents me to the college market, so I do all of my bookings myself. So hopefully, eventually, somebody here will open a legit and credible agency, so we can keep it local. Some web stuff, I definitely.
Oh, you just need Okay, y'all hear that?
Yes.
Do y'all hear what she needs?
Yeah, I need to hit her up.
Hit me
Come
up.
on now.
Yeah, I need
you
to
heard that?
We're building something.
Yeah.
But that's really the most important thing. Like, I have to be around people who are about getting the work done.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of people want the results, but not the work.
They don't want to put the work in.
And, your legacy, like the plaques you get now and the awards you get now, that stuff is not legacy. That's not legacy work. Nobody cares about a trophy, 50 years after you pass, But being a part of, like, making sure that we teach these kids how to read, building a system to making sure that our brothers and sisters that don't have English as a first language still can access quality information.
Right.
All of that, like, that's what we're doing here. So this is what I'm passionate about. I cannot work with people who are not about what they say they're about. So if you're just like, I'm gonna get some photo ops, please don't come over this way. I don't even want cameras in my face.
This ain't it.
But if you really want to build something, like, come on. And if you have something that you are trying to build and you don't know how to build out the infrastructure, like, contact me. Like, we don't have to work on the same thing. Like, there are a lot of issues that need to be tackled at the same time around our city. So I'm always willing to support other people however I can.
I can't imagine what it would be like if, like, her and Kelly rubbed elbows. Oh, my goodness.
Magic can happen.
Man,
so speaking
seriously.
of contact and people wanting to hit you up,
Mm-hmm.
what's the best ways for people to reach you online, social media, things like that?
Yep. So on social media, you can follow me on Instagram at poet_Jillian_Hanesworth. Facebook's Poet Jillian Hanesworth, but I have a website.
Jillian with a J too.
Yes, with a J. Please don't put
Not Gillian. We're not Gillian, y'all. It's Jillian
Please don't
with
do
a
that
J.
to me. Don't do it. I do have a website. It's jillthepoet.com.
Okay.
So people can contact me directly through there. If you're interested in partnering with me for Buffalo Books and you want a library box, you can contact me through the website. Yeah, and I'll have my store up on my website soon.
Okay.
But for my books, you can go to Amazon, and then they're available at a lot of local stores. I also sometimes have March and Black Monarchy.
That's super dope. Now, it wouldn't be me if I didn't put you on the spot before we close.
Okay, we could do it.
We need to hear something real quick. We need to hear something real quick, because I've had the great fortune of hearing you perform quite a bit, over the past few years. But we got some of our first generation family. They probably never heard you spit before. So let us hear something real quick before we wrap up.
Okay. I do this piece. It's called Who's the Boss? I'm going to do it because it's my mom's favorite.
Okay.
And she's probably going to be the first person to watch.
Let's go. Shout out to Mom.
So when she sees me do this piece, she mouths it with me, and I'm always like, "Don't do that! Like, this is not your moment. Like, keep your mouth still. Stop."
It's a problem, Mama. That's all it is.
Can't even get mad. So yeah, this is her favorite piece. It's called "Who's the Boss?" It's really just to edify women. So yeah.
All right.
You thought you made the sunrise. You thought you were the one. I had to bring you down a size. So I became the sun. Beamed on you heavy, had you sweating like a loaded gun. Reminder, I don't get told what to do by anyone. Don't need a savior, never been a damsel in distress. I am the dragon, I spit fire, only ashes left. I'm not a princess in a tower waiting, passing time. I am the monster you must slay before you take what's mine. I walk with pride, because I have powers I have yet to learn. Not thought of as the head, but I can influence the head to turn. Shielded with discernment that allows me to connect the dots. And too humble to broadcast that I am she who calls the shots. I listen with my soul, so I hear words that have not been spoken. Vision so clear that I see through doors that have not been opened or open yet. I walk by faith, believing what I cannot see. With melanin of magic, life wreaks havoc, yet my soul is free. I push the culture forward, raising generations like my child. And candy cocoa butter is what you think of when you see me smile. I carry the political weight. Never too much on my plate. Can't starve on mediocrity. Too busy getting full on great and greatness. That seeps out my pores. I'll always win. No need for scores. Methodic and intentional. If you need help, just ask the girls. See, ladies, we more than run the world. We're the axis on which it turns. We're the moon that makes the waters rise. We're the sun that causes land to burn. We hold down every fort, even the ones we did not build. We reach deep down inside ourselves, finding love so pure and real, a love that makes all sorrows heal and replaces them with triumph. And we conquer every jungle with more reverence than a lion. See, each great man in history had a woman right beside him, orchestrating social change, no need to get behind him. And if she did, her back was to his, so nobody would slide him, and we never miss a beat. Don't need the blueprints when you write them. We speak up for everyone, even those who won't speak up for us. And we'll fight, throwing left and right until they've had enough. We can't be broken. Some don't get that, and they keep on trying us. Not realizing every blow just makes us much more tough. We edify each other like only women can, and we're quick to get to work. We're not afraid of dirty hands. We are everything. And no, we don't always see. But a lion doesn't need a mirror to just know how to be. It is ingrained in us, the missing link God took time to create. And we'll never face a challenge that we can't annihilate. See, in society, we may be the ones they like to cross, but we'll handle that like everything else. So tell me, who's the boss?
I wish I could snap. Oh my God. That was amazing. Come on. She come on. Boss, man, you hear this? You hear her over here, man?
I'm gonna need that on my wall.
Yeah, seriously. Like, listen, we can clip this up. You know what I'm saying? We can clip this up right here. We always gonna have this now. You know what I mean? But Jillian, that was amazing. You are amazing.
So much, Jillian.
We thank you for everything that you're doing. Just your whole presence, your whole being.
Look.
You are a phenomenal leader in our city. We need you.
Over there smiling.
Yeah.
That's how you say boss man.
When you get boss man smile, yeah, you know. Yeah.
it.
But no, we appreciate you, and we will continue to edify you and lift you up.
Man.
Everything that you have going on, anything that we can do to help support you and help amplify what you have going on, you're always welcome back here.
Thank you.
So we appreciate you. So
thank you so much, Jillian.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Absolutely. We thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of We Are the Ones podcast. Make sure that you check us out on all of the major streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Audible as well.
Bam.
Follow us on YouTube. Make sure you rate, comment, subscribe, all of that stuff on YouTube because it helps the algorithm. We're trying to get up there, y'all. So we need y'all help with that. Follow us on Instagram as well at We Are the Ones Podcast, and also on Facebook at We Are the Ones Podcast.
And remember, keep winning on purpose because you're the one we've been waiting for. Thanks for checking out another episode of We Are the Ones podcast.
Make sure you subscribe and listen to our podcast on any of your favorite streaming platforms, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and even on Audible.
And then make sure you follow us on all of our social media platforms on Facebook and Instagram at We Are the Ones podcast. And make sure you subscribe, like, comment, and share. Because remember, you are not just the one. We are the ones.